What if you're not just living in reality, but causing it? Not metaphorically, literally. What if the thoughts you barely notice, the emotions you suppress, the beliefs you didn't even choose, are all collapsing the world around you into the version you call your life? Welcome to the frontier where Carl Jung's shadow meets quantum physics, where the subconscious mind merges with the quantum field, and every glance of awareness becomes an act of creation. This is not science fiction. This is the observer effect, the radical discovery that particles behave differently when watched. And what you'll soon realize is that the universe isn't just watching you, it's reacting to you. In this video, we journey beyond the veil of physical matter into the world where your subconscious beliefs shape timelines, your imagination builds reality, and your very presence becomes a tuning fork for what appears next. Jung knew this long ago, before it could be measured in labs. And by the time you reach the end of this transmission, you won't just understand the observer effect, you'll embody it. In the deepest chambers of your psyche, there is a watcher, a silent force, observing every thought, every impulse, every flicker of emotional charge. Carl Jung called it the shadow, the unseen parts of ourselves we deny, suppress, or project. Yet in the language of quantum physics, this observer isn't just internal. It's also influencing the fabric of external reality. The double-slit experiment showed us something impossible. Particles behave differently when watched. Observation doesn't just report reality, it reshapes it. Now imagine this. Every unconscious thought, every shadow impulse you've disowned, is still watching. It is still casting its intention onto the quantum canvas. That's what Jung hinted at when he said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." In quantum terms, that means reality collapses around the parts of yourself you haven't yet seen. The unseen within becomes the unchosen without. The observer effect isn't just a lab trick, it's a cosmic mirror. Your awareness is a tuning fork, vibrating and collapsing waves of possibility into form. But if your awareness is fractured, if it's filled with inner division, denial, or suppression, then the world responds with chaos, confusion, or repetition. That's not punishment, it's precision. The field reflects the frequency you project, consciously or not. This is why shadow work is quantum work. Jung's psychology wasn't separate from energy or vibration. It was a map of how consciousness conditions experience. When you deny your own power, when you hide your wounds behind personas, you fracture the observer. And when the observer is fractured, reality reflects that fragmentation. Healing isn't just emotional, it's energetic alignment. So the question becomes, who is watching your life unfold? The awakened observer or the unconscious shadow? In the quantum field, both are creators, but only one will shape the life you consciously choose. This is the moment the observer awakens and the mirror begins to shift. Carl Jung introduced the world to synchronicity, those uncanny coincidences that feel charged with meaning. A song plays the moment you think of someone. A book falls open to the exact page you need. These aren't just accidents, Jung said. They're manifestations of a deeper order, a hidden blueprint where the inner world and outer events are mysteriously aligned. Quantum physics, too, whispers of this mystery. At the subatomic level, particles separated by vast distances still know what the other is doing, instantaneously. This is quantum entanglement, and it hints at a truth ancient mystics always knew. Everything is connected. Now imagine consciousness as the bridge, your awareness as the thread stitching together the psychic and the physical. In Jung's view, the unconscious mind is not random. It's a wellspring of symbols, archetypes, and encoded intelligence. When these energies rise into awareness and are met with attention, the world outside seems to shift to meet them. That's not illusion, that's resonance. In physics, when two systems share vibrational harmony, they begin to interact non-locally. without direct contact. Jung called it meaning. Physics calls it coherence. This means your psyche is not isolated in your skull. It's woven into the energetic matrix of life. Synchronicities aren't signs from outside, they're echoes from within. They reveal that the observer effect is not limited to electrons or photons. It extends to your very life path. When you align your inner frequency with clarity, emotion, and intention, the universe responds, not always with what you want, but with what reflects where you truly are. The observer, then, is not a passive witness. It is an activator of alignment. Just as scientists collapse waveforms through measurement, humans collapse potential through meaning. When you give profound attention to an idea, a desire, or a dream, you are not just wishing, you are entangling. You are summoning the energy that moves reality into form. So when a synchronicity strikes, don't shrug it off. Don't call it luck. Call it a message from the quantum beneath your skin. It is the universe showing you that the observer has been noticed, and the dance of alignment has already begun. Reality isn't something that just happens to you. It's something that responds to you, vibrationally, energetically, precisely. At the center of this dance is consciousness, not as a passive experiencer, but as a creative force. Quantum mechanics flipped the old paradigm upside down. No longer could we pretend that the universe was made of cold, dead matter. The observer's presence, your awareness, actually determines how reality manifests. You are not separate from what you see. You are the mirror and the mirrored. Carl Jung intuited this long before the language of physics caught up. He saw the psyche not as a private vault, but as part of a shared energetic field. He said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens." That's because the true observer doesn't just look at the world, it looks through the self. The more conscious you become of your inner patterns, desires, and archetypes, the more your outer world begins to shimmer with that same structure. The field doesn't care what you think. It reflects what you believe, what you feel, what you are. Imagine walking through life as if everything you encounter is feedback, not punishment, not reward, just a reflection of frequency. If you walk with shame, life echoes situations that reinforce shame. If you walk with clarity, coherence, and a sense of empowered presence, life synchronizes with that. The universe is not personal, but it is deeply responsive. It follows vibration, not words, intention, not appearances. This is why presence is power. Every time you observe your thoughts, instead of reacting from them, you shift your frequency. Every time you claim your experience instead of projecting it onto others, you change the mirror. This is what turns the observer effect into a daily practice. Not just in labs, but in living rooms, relationships, and soul paths. You don't need to control the world. You only need to clarify the observer. When you stop waiting for proof and start embodying truth, the quantum field responds. Not because you forced it, but because you aligned with it. And when that happens, reality no longer feels random. It becomes a living dialogue, a mirror made of light, echoing back who you've chosen to become. At every moment you are surrounded by infinite potentials, countless paths your life could take, each vibrating just beneath the threshold of manifestation. Quantum physics calls this the wave function, a spectrum of probabilities existing in superposition. Nothing is fixed until something observes it, and when observation enters, the wave collapses into a single event. But what if that something isn't just a scientist's instrument? What if it's your belief? Carl Jung understood that belief isn't just psychological, it's creative. He wrote, "We don't see things as they are, we see them as we are." In quantum language, your dominant beliefs act like filters that determine which potentials collapse into your reality. Beliefs are not opinions. They are subconscious programs coded into the energetic body. They carry frequency. They act as magnetic instructions, broadcasting to the field which version of the world to stabilize. Think of belief like a tuning dial on an old radio. If you're tuned to lack, even abundance around you will seem invisible. If you're tuned to worthiness, opportunities seem to arise effortlessly. This isn't magic. It's vibration matching vibration. It's the observer effect, guided by internal software. The quantum field is neutral. It doesn't reward the good or punish the bad. It mirrors resonance. So if you're wondering why life feels stuck, ask yourself not what you want, but what you believe is possible. This is where inner work becomes quantum recalibration. Changing belief isn't just mindset work, it's frequency tuning, and that means diving into the subconscious, confronting inherited patterns, rewriting stories held in the nervous system. As those shift, your field of possibility shifts with it. The wave function reshapes, and what was once improbable becomes inevitable. So next time you find yourself caught between choices, desires, or doubts, remember, you're not waiting for the universe to decide. The universe is waiting for you to observe with clarity, with conviction, with coherence, and in that act of belief, firm, embodied, and emotionally charged, potential collapses into form. Long before quantum physicists explored the behavior of particles, Carl Jung was mapping the architecture of the unseen, thought forms, archetypes, and collective imprints that shape human reality. He understood that consciousness is not individual alone, but tied into a vast energetic network, what he called the collective unconscious. These archetypes, these recurring blueprints of meaning, aren't just psychological myths. They're living patterns in the quantum field, vibrating beneath all form and experience. A thought form is more than a thought. It's a charged mental entity, fed by attention, emotion, and repetition. Jung didn't have the language of energy physics, but he knew these forms act independently once given enough psychic weight. They live in us and around us, subtly guiding choices, perceptions, even the events we magnetize. In today's language, they are frequency signatures, cohesive vibrations that imprint onto the wave field of potential. When you understand this, you realize your mind isn't a private chamber, it's a broadcast tower. Every time you dwell on a pattern, whether victimhood, empowerment, jealousy, or joy, you're feeding a thought form. That form becomes part of the observer matrix, and the field, in turn, mirrors it back. That's why archetypes like the hero, the shadow, or the wounded child don't just live in myth. They animate our lives. They are the invisible filters through which the quantum responds. This is where science begins to trail the mystic. While physics catches glimpses of the observer effect in labs, the ancients and visionaries like Jung have known, the mind shapes matter through archetypal resonance. You don't attract what you think casually, you attract what you consistently energize. That's why transformation requires more than positive thoughts. It demands the alchemical transmutation of core archetypal energy. So ask yourself, which thought forms are you feeding? Which archetypes are running your life? When you choose to embody a new energy, not just in thought, but in breath, action, and vibration, you don't just shift your mindset, you reprogram the field. And in that shift, reality rewrites itself in your image. Beneath the surface of your conscious mind lies the true observer, the subconscious, a silent architect scripting 95% of your daily experience. While you may speak affirmations or visualize your desires, it's the subconscious that broadcasts your true frequency. This is where Carl Jung's work becomes essential to quantum reality. The unobserved parts of the self are not passive, they're creators. The shadow isn't just psychological, it's vibrational. And it collapses reality just as effectively as your conscious intentions. Think of the subconscious like a film projector. You don't see the reels spinning, you only see the images on the screen. But unless you change the reel, the movie doesn't change. That reel is composed of emotional memories, ancestral coding, cultural conditioning, and early life imprints. You may desire abundance, but if the subconscious holds scarcity as safe, that's the frequency it emits. And the quantum field, in its perfect neutrality, reflects that signal back. This is why the observer effect isn't just about what you notice consciously, it's about what notices you from within. Every unresolved trauma, every limiting belief, every unacknowledged part of you is part of the observation mechanism. It shapes how you interpret life, how you feel about opportunities, how you respond to synchronicity. In this way, the subconscious isn't a passive library. It's an active creator in the quantum equation. Carl Jung emphasized integration. He knew that until the subconscious becomes conscious, you will misread your own power. You'll think life is happening to you, when in fact life is echoing you. The quantum field, much like the unconscious mind, responds to emotional coherence, not intellectual clarity. That's why inner healing is not separate from manifestation. It is manifestation in its purest form. So if reality feels stuck, don't push harder. Go deeper, not into effort, but into awareness. Ask, what belief is this moment reflecting? What wound is this trigger revealing? What story am I unknowingly observing into existence? Because when you shift at the root, the field has no choice but to rearrange. The subconscious observer has spoken, and the world listens. Imagination is not make-believe. It is pre-reality, a sacred interface where consciousness rehearses potential futures and imprints them into the quantum field. Carl Jung knew this well. He entered his inner world through what he called active imagination, engaging archetypes and symbols as if they were real, and in doing so, discovered they responded. The mystics knew it, the shamans practiced it, and quantum physics is beginning to hint at it. The mind doesn't just reflect the world, it generates it. Within the dreamscape of your mind lies the purest observer, unbound by logic, rules, or time. In imagination, you are free to become. You shift roles, embody different vibrations, rewrite scenes. These mental rehearsals, when emotionally charged and vividly felt, are not idle fantasies. They're neural blueprints and vibrational signals. They activate the same parts of the brain and body as physical reality. In quantum terms, they're collapsing waves into structure, starting inside. This is why Jung encouraged inner dialogue, not just reflection, but engagement. He met figures in his dreams, explored landscapes within his soul, and watched how his waking life changed in response. Today, science sees similar patterns in neuroplasticity and coherent brain-heart states. The act of inner visualization rewires perception and alters what reality responds to, because in the quantum realm, where attention goes, energy flows. When you consciously imagine a version of yourself that is aligned, empowered, whole, you're not pretending. You're tuning into a parallel frequency. You're activating a different quantum self and inviting it into resonance with your current identity. That's not delusion, it's dimensional navigation. It's what Neville Goddard called living in the end. Feel it as done, and the field begins its mysterious orchestration. So don't wait for dreams to arrive. Go to them, walk their halls, speak with their symbols, breathe them into now. Because the imagination is not your escape, it is your laboratory of reality. And when the observer within is aligned with the dream you choose, the universe responds. Not because it heard your words, but because it felt your frequency. The moment you realize you are the observer, a deeper truth begins to surface. You are also the architect, not by force or control, but through vibration, intention, and awareness. The observer effect doesn't just suggest that reality responds to you, it proves that reality organizes itself around your conscious alignment. And with every shift in that alignment, timelines shift. Possibilities realign, futures collapse or open. You are not trapped in destiny. You are swimming in a field of choice. Carl Jung hinted at this when he spoke of individuation, the process of becoming whole. It's not about adding more to yourself, but integrating the fragmented pieces within. As you do, the observer becomes coherent, powerful, precise. And when the observer is aligned, the field reflects that precision. You begin to notice opportunities that weren't there before. People show up, patterns break. What once seemed immovable begins to dissolve. Not because the outer world changed first, but because your frequency did. This is what it means to shift timelines. Not to time travel in the sci-fi sense, but to collapse a different set of probabilities into the now. In quantum language, this is superposition. Every version of you already exists. The you who doubts, the you who thrives, the you who lives your highest expression. They are all potential patterns encoded in the quantum substrate. Your job isn't to create them. Your job is to tune into them, embody them, observe them so vividly that the field has no choice but to respond. This is not delusional optimism. It is conscious architecture. The bridge between belief and biology, between quantum theory and spiritual mastery. When you declare a new reality, not from wishful thinking, but from a grounded, emotionally coherent state, you set the blueprint. When you act in alignment with that blueprint, you walk into that timeline. And when you sustain that alignment long enough, the old timeline collapses. It has no energy left to stand, so the question is not, can I shift my reality? The real question is, can you become coherent enough to hold the frequency of the reality you want, long enough for it to become real? That's the work of the architect. That's the power of the observer. And that is how timelines bend. So now you know, the universe isn't something distant, fixed, or separate. It's a field, a mirror, a living organism responding to the frequency of your consciousness. You are not a passive participant in this life. You are the observer, the dreamer, the code embedded in the quantum equation. And whether you've been aware of it or not, reality has always been reacting to you. Not just to what you say or do, but to what you believe, to what you feel, and to what you truly are. Carl Jung wasn't just describing the human psyche. He was mapping the energetic technology of the soul. And the observer effect? It's the key that unlocks your ability to collapse timelines, to transmute archetypes, and to choose the version of reality that serves your evolution. You don't need to fight the world. You only need to tune the observer. Because once you do, the mirrors shift, and the entire story begins to change. If this message activated something deep within you, if your inner world is stirring with remembrance and power, then like this video, share it with a fellow seeker and subscribe to the Cosmic Awakening channel for more transmissions that remind you who and what you really are. Your awakening rewrites reality.